Dr. Butts, on that day when your brilliant, revolutionary, brave and courageous man was pastor of this church, I was a young lawyer on 125th Street, and I accompanied Minister Malcolm. I always refer to him as the Minister Malcolm, Dr. Stanislaus, always as Minister Malcolm. I accompanied Minister Malcolm here on that day, and I left here with him. This was in the first year, 1954, of my dedication to Minister Malcolm. Now, why did I dedicate myself to Minister Malcolm? I did it because I was for the revolution. But I, like so many of you, were not willing to die for the revolution. Do you hear what I said? I was going to jail, as so many of my members of my family from San Antonio, Texas, went to jail. We were active in the Communist Party. We were active in a variety of things, but we were going to jail with regularity. In Texas, in Alabama, in Mississippi, in Georgia, and ladies and gentlemen, if you've never been whipped in a Mississippi jail, you've got nothing on your body to show where you were beaten in Brazos, Texas. You, I'm afraid, don't know the cruelty of another black man being ordered to slap you around or beat you. I've known that cruelty, and virtually every brother and sister of mine has known that cruelty over the years. Now, why do I mention that? I mention that, ladies and gentlemen, because it is so good that you're assembling here tonight. It's so good that I've had the opportunity to sit on the front row there between two persons who played such a large role in my life. It was Omar Ahmed, who sits to my right. Stand up, please, Omar Ahmed. Who was a very young man who went with me when I committed myself to Minister Malcolm. The lady to my immediate left has played, Viola Plummer, has played such a large role in challenging me. Well, Dr. Butts, when I walked in and found myself sitting next to her, I said, lady, few people have ever challenged me that I couldn't do anything about. No matter what I did, I thought it was good. Viola Plummer said, not enough, not enough, not enough. Then Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben, God bless you, Dr. Ben. Dr. Smalls, you've been a real gallant person. Every year, from the time we buried Minister Malcolm, you've been there for us. Year after year after year, sir. You've been there, and I thank you for that. Dr. Butts, no finer leader is there in this nation than the man who ministers to the people of this church. The man who not only is here, who didn't leave Morehouse University to just go anywhere. He decided to take on the challenge of going to the Big Apple and becoming big in the Big Apple. Am I right, Carlos Russell? You not only, sir, are good here, but nationwide. And when I saw you standing there on the pulpit at Riverside Church, leading the tribute to Minister Malcolm, I thought, isn't it wonderful that you gathered unto yourself in this church, this day, this time, so many of the people of consequence from our society, people who have done things and are doing things. And the number of young people, sir, you've gathered into this church is impressive beyond the bounds of any other church. And it's so good. I thank you, sir. I thank you. Dr. Stanislaus, you mentioned that I was with Minister Malcolm. When he was slaughtered on that night at the Audubon Ballroom, they asked me to identify his body. And other people have represented me in the movie, but I don't say that in anger, because my attitude with Minister Malcolm was, I would even refuse to sit on the platform, because I'd never liked exhibitionists. My pronouncement was, the man known as Malcolm X is no more. And I did that at Sister Betty's request, those words. But then I joined her and the family, and I said, I shouldn't have used those words, because really, Minister Malcolm is forever. On this night, in this church, is a widow of a young man that I knew many, many years ago. I'm in the 84th year of my life, so I've seen a lot of things and I've known a lot of people. Minister Malcolm was 4 years my junior. A young man invited me. He was a sergeant major of a colored group of black persons. Colored black, you did hear me say that, didn't you? At an Air Force base in San Antonio, Texas. But he was also a revolutionary. My brothers and sisters knew him quite well. I was invited to speak on that day. And he kept me from being arrested. He kept me from being arrested. It was not good as a second lieutenant to be arrested. Although there were some arrests. Some of you know I was an activist at the Tuskegee Airmen. I grew up in that atmosphere of protesting, and we protested there. On that day, this young man, who later became Dr. John Henry Clark, you know very well, right? On the day that I was arrested, integrating in lunch counter, 1961, in Montgomery, Alabama, I'm trying to tie together the man called Malcolm. They took me to the home of a young man who had just become the pastor of a church there. And the man who took me there was a man named Nixon, who was an activist in the ACP. He wanted me to meet this young man called Martin Luther King. I had known his father. That young man was one of the more brilliant people I've known in my lifetime. I worked with him, marched with him, I got to know him well. But the difference between Minister Malcolm and Martin and others is that nobody every day faced danger in their existence as did Minister Malcolm. Ladies and gentlemen, from the time he woke up in the morning and the time he went to bed at night, his life was in danger. Let me close by saying this about him, if you will. Minister Malcolm and I were riding in a car. I've told this story before. Some of you know the story. It's just that I've written it down and tonight so that it doesn't seem so easy to receive. We were leaving a place to go to get a sandwich. The car was large that we got in. To my left, in the front seat, the driver had a shotgun or a rifle leaning against the door. I know not which. But I do know he had a pistol in his lap because I saw it. To my right was a man with a shotgun or rifle. I don't know which, but he had a pistol in his lap. I turned and looked at the back of me to Minister Malcolm, who was sitting between two men, similarly armed. I said, Mr. Minister, doesn't this disturb you, all of these guns? Now, we had not been riding like that before. Now, you've got to appreciate that this Minister Malcolm that I knew, sort of like Jesse Jackson today, I receive a call from him early in the morning and late at night. There was an intimacy of a relationship. Though I was in the NAACP, he was a man facing real danger. And he said, they think they're protecting me. He said, but they really can't, counselor. They can't protect me, for I have a destiny. He said, have I ever told you the story of Omar the slave? He said, I don't know where the location really was, but they say it was someplace in Serbia. When Omar the slave said to his master, Master, oh master, I fear the face of death. If I've been a good slave, master, give me your fastest horse and let me ride. He said, you see, counselor, the theory was he could outrun death if he could outrun the wind during the daytime. If he could make it from sunup to sundown, he would be safe. So the master said, yes, Omar, you've been a good slave. And he gave to Omar his fastest horse. And on the first day, Omar, after mounting the horse, rode as fast as the wind and made it to sunset. Dismounted, fed the horse, bathed the horse, fed himself, and slept through the night until the break of dawn. And at the break of dawn, he rode swiftly as he had done on the first day. And he repeated the same procedure at night with the horse and himself. But on the third day, he had just made it, he thought. Just a fraction before the day would end. There were 7 paths down which he could go, Mrs. Malcolm said. And he chose a path to the right. He'd gone only a short distance down that path, and he pulled the horse back. And he started down the center path and said, no, this is not it. And he pulled his horse back again. And then he chose a path far to the left. And there, he'd gone only a short distance, just moments before sunset, in safety. And there in the center of the path stood the face of death. And death said, Omar, Omar, where have you been? For 3 days I've waited for you to come. Why has it taken you so long? So he said, so counsel, you see, I have a destiny. And my destiny is someone will kill me. 2 weeks later, he was killed.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nat Wood, as many of you know, and this is 30 Frames a Second. This is also Black History Month, and we're approaching the anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm. Wow. Of Malcolm X. Malcolm was assassinated February 21st, 1965. So we figured that we had an opportunity to both acknowledge and celebrate Malcolm and acknowledge and celebrate his legal representative, the Honorable Percy Sutton, who passed away a few years ago. With that, and that was done on the day of Malcolm's assassination, February 21st in 2005. Which brings us to February 21st, 2013, and an event that's being sponsored by the December 12th movement commemorating Malcolm. And we have a young man here who's going to talk about that event, talk about Minister Malcolm, and talk about some of the things that they're going to acknowledge on that day and address on that day. He's Vernon Verdry, and we'll be right back at you with Vernon in Black History Month, commemorating Malcolm. Peace. If you got it, you can roll it.
That was a good piece from Percy Sutton. Good piece.
Oh, there we go. That into the fact where the victim is now the perpetrator and the perpetrator is now the victim. And that just drives me crazy. All right, we're back again. We had a little mishap there, and we rolled black. That might have been my fault. I'm not sure. But in any event, we're back. And as I said, we have a guest today. He's Vernon Verdry. He is a member of the December 12th movement. In the Percy Sutton thing, he was talking about Viola. Percy said nobody challenged him like Viola. Viola is still challenging people. Viola is Viola. As a matter of fact, the whole membership of D12 can be a little rambunctious at times. But we're going to talk about Pan-Africanism Rising, the International Forum. It says, resist the rise of imperialism in Africa and wars of recolonization. It's going to be Thursday, February 21st, which is the commemoration of Malcolm's assassination. February 21st, 2013 at 6 p.m. at Mount Olivet Baptist Church, That's 201 Malcolm X Boulevard, Lenox Avenue, which was named after Malcolm. And that's the corner of 120th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. So that's February 21st, this year, 2013, February 21st at 6 p.m. at Mount Olivet Baptist Church, 201 Malcolm X Boulevard. That's the corner of 120th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. Brother Virgie, how you doing, brother? Tell us about this event and some of your thoughts about what we rolled in Malcolm and what we're going to be doing at Mount Olivet.
Well, first of all, Nat, thanks for inviting me onto the program. Definitely appreciate it. When we talk about Malcolm X represents what black people need to be doing, what black people did, and how we see ourselves as a people. Mm-hmm. I know for me, Malcolm X, I didn't read about Malcolm X until my college years.
Wow.
And for me, I thought that was unfortunate because after reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, you found out that the man, he not only represented himself, but he represented his people because he had a love for his people. He understood the conditions that we lived in, and he wanted better for our people. So, and Malcolm, he was who he was. He was just a man, a plain black man who saw some things that need to be changed. And when you talk about Viola challenging Percy Sutton, that's what Malcolm did with us. He challenged our people. He challenged our people because he knew the conditions that we were living in was unacceptable, so they had to be changed. And being part of the December 12th movement, we recognize what Malcolm did, not only nationally for our people, but in the sense that he took our struggle to the international realm. Malcolm understood that it was not only about civil rights, it was about human rights. That's what our struggle was about. So while he was in the streets talking to our people, he was in different universities talking about what's going on with our people, he also understood that he had to make the connection between our struggle here in the United States and connect that with the struggle of our African brothers and sisters all across the world.
What are the things that that people don't understand about Malcolm? And maybe I have a perspective that's not so unique, but a perspective that is indicative of my age group. I'm 61. I was born in 1951. So when Malcolm died in 65, I was 13 going on 14. And I grew up in Harlem, in a Harlem tenement. And so Malcolm was not just, whereas to the activist community, Malcolm was all of these things you just mentioned. But to kids like me in the streets of Harlem, Malcolm was more. Malcolm was one of us. Malcolm was someone whose father had been murdered, whose mother ultimately was committed to a mental health facility, who grew up in foster care, who joined the Nation of Islam in 1952, the year after I was born, while in prison. So Malcolm, unlike a lot of the intellectual elite, which see activism and black people in you know, almost romantic sense, you know. Malcolm was one of us. Malcolm was an overcomer. Malcolm was somebody who all the cards would stacked against him and kept coming. Malcolm was inspirational to us, you know, in a way that a lot of people could never be inspirational to us just because of their circumstance, you know.
Exactly how you say that, because when you look at Malcolm X's history, just when you say going back to his family, how his father had to fight against racism. We can all understand and relate with that. Just how Malcolm growing up as a young man, not being educated to the full degree so he could achieve going to high school or college. Having to overcome that. Having to overcome going through the prison system, which many of our young men to this day still have to go through. So Malcolm, as he said, he's one of us. You know, he came from out of the same conditions that we all did. And he found a way to not only overcome, but as you said, to inspire us to overcome as well.
That it's possible for us, that we are not simply the folly of our circumstance, that there's nothing there's nothing that can stop us. I think that those of us who came out of captivity in America, and those of us who came out of Jim Crow, had a better understanding of our capacity to keep coming, be that irresistible force. Whereas it seems as though some of us are sort of defeated by our circumstance, even though some of us really have not really been like beat up the way others have, you
Exactly.
know. But that's just my take on Malcolm. Now, in this forum that you're going to have at Mount Olivet, you're going to be talking about Libya, Cote d'Ivoire, which is we call the Ivory Coast in America, Zimbabwe, Haiti, Mali, and the Congo. Give us some perspective on some of that. You can pick any one that you want to start off with. And,
Sure. Well, just going back and relating it to Malcolm X, it's important that we focus on these countries in particular, because right now they're all under attack. Again, Malcolm understood that we had to make a connection to Africa, because that's where our history is. We didn't just were plopped from somewhere and just brought over here. We were brought from Africa. So we go back to that history of being African people, and again, put it all into international body to let it know that our struggle and what's going on around the world is all related, especially nowadays as the world has gotten so small and smaller. Everything's all connected. Again, as Malcolm went to the United Nations back in his day, we in the December 12th movement are saying that we have to connect those dots of what's happening, not only here to our people, but also around the world, because we're all under attack by one common enemy, and that enemy is imperialism. Imperialism takes many forms. In this country, it takes the form of police brutality, poor health care, lack of education, housing, unemployment. On other parts of the world, it takes the form of no right to sovereignty for their own nation. You have a nation such as Cote d'Ivoire, where it's French dominated. France is the colonial master.
Yeah, France, boy, that's, trust me, if you think being colonized by the British is a handful, you ain't seen nothing. The French can do it up like nobody can.
This is so true. We saw the French at work when it came to Libya. Libya, it's important that we remember Libya, because Libya was under attack for two reasons. One, Libya saw the need, and under Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, they saw the need to have a united Africa. A united Africa would mean a strong Africa that would benefit all Africans. But the Europeans and the imperialists understood that a united Africa would be a threat to what their interests are. So they said that Gaddafi has to go.
Now, one of the things that is prevalent in the art of war, you know, and imperialism is, I think, is a fancy way of saying realpolitik, might makes right. You know, politics is at the barrel of the biggest gun. But one of the major, aside from the gun itself, one of the major weapons of imperialism is the control of the media and the way people think. The imperialist nations, specifically the European imperialist nations, and now the greatest European imperialist nation that ever existed, being the United States of America. I know that's going to sound a little strange, but if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Have convinced the entire world that both Egypt and Libya are Arab, as opposed to African.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of that has to do with trying to convince people that nothing of value has ever come out of Africa. You know, and I've heard people say that over and over and over again. You know, and a lot of it is just like being able to denigrate the civilizations, the great civilizations of Africa, into being not quite African or coming from somewhere else. It's, you know, I mean, it just like defies the logic of the map.
It's so true. And what you said about the media is right on point, Nat, because we go back to Malcolm X. Malcolm X always said that the media, they will have you believing that your friends are your enemies,
Right.
not your enemies are your friends.
Right.
So it's important that we have to have that knowledge about who we are as a people, and we can make that connection to Africa. That's our homeland.
Right.
That's where we come from. So we have to have some kind of knowledge of what's going on over
Right.
there. And again, just back on the media, when we talk about Zimbabwe, the propaganda war that's been going on against Zimbabwe, when Zimbabwe got their independence back in 1980, then Prime Minister, but now
Right.
President Robert Mugabe,
Right.
he was the media darling. All the
Right.
Europeans, they
Right.
wanted all African leaders to be like
Right.
President Robert Mugabe,
Right.
the leader of Zimbabwe.
Right.
Now we fast forward to 30 years later, now he's being demonized.
Right.
And the reason he's being demonized is because President Mugabe said, I'm here to serve the people of Zimbabwe.
Right.
So what he decided to do was to give the land back to the people of Zimbabwe. And the Europeans didn't want that.
Yeah.
And it's important we mention that point because there was an agreement that the land would be the land that I should say that was stolen from the people originally.
Right.
Because it wasn't just like the people of Zimbabwe said, okay, when the European settlers came, oh, here's our land. It was taken at the barrel of a gun.
Right.
So
right.
now when the Africans come back into power and want to distribute that land to the people so they can better their lives, the Europeans, they get upset.
Right. Right.
You know?
Right.
So that's why it's important that, again, we go back to Malcolm X. Malcolm X always talked about self-determination. That's what President Mugabe was doing
Right,
for his people,
right, right.
saying this is what we need to have control of that land so we can have the resources better to people's lives. And not-
It's interesting. I've never heard so many black men call Hitler before in my life. And I don't know if you noticed, y'all, but Hitler was, you know, not a black man, you know. No aspect of Hitler was black mannish. But one of the things that, aside from Libya and Cote d'Ivoire and Zimbabwe and Haiti and Mali and the Congo, aside from them being all black nations, one of the things that they have in common is, except for Haiti, which was incredibly rich and has just been devastated by imperialism, the rest of those nations are still extraordinarily blessed with resources that empower and enrich the whole global community. When you look at the Congo, I mean, every cell phone, every computer, you know, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You're talking about gold, you're talking about diamonds, you're talking about Libya got oil to power the world into the 24th century, you know. Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast, Zimbabwe, not only does it have diamonds, but it, I mean, agriculture, just so much. And none of the people benefit from any of this wealth. European nations and Europeans benefit from all the minerals in the Congo, the diamonds, the agriculture. You know, the only thing that these countries seem to get is hyperinflation, slave wages and slave jobs, you know, and a constant state of unrest, and everybody else gets rich.
That's what happens. The colonizers, they come in, they destabilize the country, make the conditions poor for the indigenous people who are the rightful owners of the country, and they sap the country of all the resources. And that has been going on since colonial days and now in this new stage of neocolonialism. Because a lot of people, they don't see it, but when you look deeper and deeper into the situation, you can see that the country's being taken advantage.
Right.
And Haiti is a perfect example of that.
Right.
The powers that be, the European and Western allies, have all had it in for Haiti since Haiti got their independence.
Right, right.
When they defeated Napoleon, when they defeated the
Right,
French
1804.
Empire. Right.
Right.
They have had it in for Haiti since then, and they have destabilized that country, whether it be through wars, through famine, through sanctions,
Right.
through propping up corrupt governments.
Right. To destroying the very ecosystem itself, to grow cash crops, to you know, to power I don't know what they're powering now. It's just a hatred of Haiti for daring to cast out usurpers and try to be free.
Exactly. Another example in Haiti, the earthquake. We're 3 years later after the earthquake in Haiti,
Right.
and yet still there are
Right.
people still
Right.
suffering.
Right.
Thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of
Right.
people still homeless,
Right.
nowhere to go. And yet there was over billions of dollars
Right.
raised.
Same thing with Katrina. They collected billions of dollars, you know, and there was nations, African nations, that wanted to donate oil and resources, and the white man said, no, we don't want your stuff. We just, you know, let these Negroes, you know, these Negroes can take it. We real Americans, you know. And you find out that a lot of the insurance companies never paid. People were paying like for generations insurance money on their houses. And I'm talking about Katrina. What they did to Haiti is just disgraceful. I mean, it's beyond anything that you could even perceive of in Katrina, because they have literally clear-cut the entire country, so it's almost impossible to rebuild. It's very, very difficult because in order to you know, grow cash crops like coffee and sugar, they've cut down all the trees. It's like just like,
Deforestation, right.
you know, they have really just done a job on Haiti that, you know, really it bears no resemblance to the Haiti that was described by Frederick Douglass.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. And that point that you made about Katrina is important because, again, we go back to Malcolm. This U.S. government, their domestic politics toward black people here in America is how they feel about African people all around the world.
Right.
And we have to make that connection. And when we make that connection, we can see why there's a situation in Cote d'Ivoire where the French are running amok,
Right.
controlling that nation, where they want to put down Libya and promote regime change.
Right.
That's their word now. Instead of war, they say regime change on a nation of kind of Zimbabwe. So we have to see all that together and look at it how Malcolm X would have looked at it. Malcolm would have been talking about this international situation,
Right.
how all these countries are going into different countries across the world and destabilizing them.
Right,
Look now, we're in Syria. Everywhere around the globe,
Right.
there's a conflict where the United States, CIA, or someone has their hand in it that's propping up these illegal governments that aren't for the people, but they're just for the interests of the imperialists whose only goal is to get those resources out of the country
Right,
to further
right,
their own
right,
agenda.
Right. Now, one of the most, and this is not, I don't know if this is going to be addressed, but one of the most disappointing aspects of the Obama administration is his eagerness to assassinate the heads of countries for the imperialistic agenda of the United States of America. Drone strikes where women and children are little more than collateral. And they don't do this to white folks' countries. I mean, they, you know, it's unbelievable that the people of Liberia, with the diamonds that they have, go through the extraordinary circumstances they have. It's unbelievable that when you look at countries like Zimbabwe, where a handful of white people literally had all the money all the time and everybody else had nothing, you know, and nobody even addresses that, you know. It's very disappointing. I think the ignorance that we have toward our own selves, our own history, our own homelands, our own brothers and sisters, you know, is probably more disappointing to me than some of the atrocities that are reaped upon them because we do the ostrich thing.
That's right. And once again, we go back to Malcolm X. Malcolm X, I remember he had a saying when he addressed young people. He said one of the most important things that you can be able to do is to learn how to think for yourself. And the way that you do that is that you have to acquire knowledge. You have to know what's going on around the corner. You have to know what's going on next door, the next neighborhood, the next state, the next nation. So it's important for us to seek knowledge, and not just knowledge from the New York Times
Right.
or the Daily News or CNN. We have to seek out other sources that are going to tell the story, the real story, and not just United States inspired story that just, again, sets up their agenda.
Right.
Because we as black people, we have to have our agenda. That agenda has to be pushed. And that's why this program that we're going to, the December 12th movement is having next week at Mount Olivet Baptist Church is an important program because we want to put black people, African people back on the agenda because we're going to have to come up with some of those answers for our future. About what's
Correct.
going to happen. You know, we can't sit back and wait for somebody else to control our lives and our destiny. We have to do that. So that's why we also say that Pan-Africanism is rising because it has to be a collective effort. You know, we like to say that we here in the United States, we're connected to our brothers in Africa. You know, we have to show that too because our condition is their condition and vice versa. So now we have to act on that. And again, this program, in the spirit of Malcolm X, will help us do that. And it's about getting that information. That's the starting point, getting the information so that we can make rational decisions on which way we have to move forward for our survival. Because as we know, in this time period, things are getting tough all around us.
Right,
You know?
right. And as a matter of fact, the informed mind, the prepared mind is going to be far more prevalent than anything else in this new paradigm. Because they have literally done a tremendous job of dumbing down all of America. Yeah, I'm having little glitches. Oh, I see. We have a phone call, so if you can put the phone call through. Maybe the caller wants to ask a question that I have not thought of, or you know, which is not. Yeah, hi caller, we hear you.
Yeah, Brother Nat, of course, once again, another award-winning show. Unfortunately, I didn't catch your guest's name. I too...
Vernon
in my
Verdry.
All right. I too, in my later years, had got familiar as best I could with Malcolm X. You know, prior to that, I thought he was like this white type cat.
Right.
But then I seen where the brother went through his transitions and whatnot. He was man enough. You know, like how some people, no matter how much something may be contrary to their views, one thing I dug about Malcolm was when he seen something was, you know, when he seen that he was wrong, he had no problem correcting himself. You know,
Right.
and that's one of the things that endeared me to this brother. But I'm just curious, why is it that so-called impoverished countries that seem like they can never get enough to eat, it always seems that they always have the latest weaponry at the ready. You ever notice that?
Yes.
What's going on with that?
Well, and I really appreciate you, brother. I've heard you call in on Big Talk. I've heard some of the things you have said. The way you've been honest about your own life. Indeed, you are one of us, and you have been very empowering yourself. But remember the chaos in just a household where the woman might go out and bring a man into the household who is a violent maniac, and how that destables the whole household, how it destables the educational process of the children, who eats, whether or not they go homeless, who gets beat up. Now multiply that by the imperialist nature of European culture, countries. And it was Dr. Clark said, who coined the phrase, the European burst onto the scene of history as marauders. I mean, they just like, suddenly they were there, and they were like everywhere, and they were like destabilizing countries everywhere. Haiti. They assassinated the leaders of Haiti and installed their own leaders, and they gave them the guns. And when you look at places in Africa, the Janjaweed and those countries, they didn't manufacture those guns. When they came to the United States, what did they do? They gave the indigenous people alcohol. They diseased their blankets. They gave them guns. They pointed them against each other. Who the gods would destroy, they first make mad. And and they are very, very effective in what they do. And as soon as you say, well, wait a minute, you know, you got all the money all the time, they accuse you of being racist. You know, when you ask for, when you talk about the injustice of millions of black and brown people in jail as opposed to everyone else, they accuse you of being racist, you know, and they're the first ones to tell you, I don't see color, but there's no one with white folks there, you know. When they preempt us, they preempt us with white folks, and they don't even notice it's white folks. They say it's progressives, but it's progressive white folks. I turned in on Amy Goodman's show, and they were celebrating Black history. And what did they have? They had a white woman, Amy Goodman, interviewing a white woman who wrote a book about Rosa Parks for Black History Month. And it's true, they don't see color. I guess you don't see color if it's the only color that's there, you know. But this is a destabilizing process that is very, very effective. It is the art of war. And as it says in Sun Tzu, all war is deception. So you don't believe that it's happening when it's happening right before your eyes. And that's why it's so important for us to become more and more and more knowledgeable and see things that is evident, you know, because they do it right in front of your face.
Right. And just as Nat said, if we are at war, we have to realize who the enemy is. You know, we can't be having trivial fights amongst ourselves, and then we have the bigger picture of the enemy constantly meddling in our lives in every way, you know, propping up those fights, those disagreements, but instead of us talking and sitting down and coming to solutions that are going to better our community.
Yeah.
So we have to be, as Malcolm, again, I go back to Malcolm X, we got to be able to think for ourselves and come up with ideas that are going to work for us as a people, not us individually, but for us as a people.
Right, and the first thing they say, oh, it's civil war, it's tribal. Where's a bunch of hooey? It's about destabilizing a country so that if it's just tribal war, how did you end up with all the resources and the money? If it's just me and him, and I don't like him, and he don't like me, and we ain't liked each other for 1,000 years, how did you, this third party, end up with all the money, giving us the guns so that we can kill ourselves? Where'd you come from?
Well, you know, bro, it's like, man, Tuesday is like my resuscitation day because I got y'all, and then at 5 o'clock I got community cop, and, you know, so on and so forth. But in between time, all I got is everybody wanting to be, how you call it, a hip-hop VJ. You know what I'm saying? Now, mind you, I don't just rely on y'all to give, you know, to give me my information.
Right,
I go
right.
out and try and do the best I can by myself also.
Right.
However, you know, it's kind of daunting whenever you look at the direction our people tend to be going. You see, because me personally, I don't embrace that black-on-black crap, you know,
Right.
black-on-black crime.
Right.
Like how Dick Gregory had pointed out and whatnot. When white folks kill white folks, they ain't making it a problem. Or when
Right.
Asians kill Asians, they don't make it a problem. But it seems like every time something happens with black folks, it's like, oh, you know, it's like these people is crazy and whatnot. You know the story
Right,
and whatnot.
right,
But
right,
I'm just
right,
curious,
right.
how can I counter this lack of pertinent information like y'all brothers are imparting and whatnot?
You want to address that? Because I think that you are the end of something and the beginning of something else. And we all want results immediately, but that's not how life works. And it's no crime to want to be hip-hop DJ of the year, but that does not in and of itself permit you to be an irrelevant idiot. And I think that there is a change that is coming with young people. They're getting smarter. They're getting more progressive. It is the beginning of something. It is a seed growing, but I see the seed. I see the seed. I see the seed You know, we didn't create the environment. You didn't come because we created something that you didn't know anything about. You gravitate toward my show, Community Cop Show, other shows like that, because there's something in you that gravitates toward like-minded people and whatnot. It was already there. It's just, you know, it's just people coming together, like minds coming together. And I think that that is happening as we speak, even with the younger generation. But there's going to be resistance, but there is no immovable object in the face of a truly irresistible force.
That's right, brother. It starts with you. It starts with you and your consciousness. You know, how do you see the world? You know, how do you see what's happening not only on your block, but around the corner, around the nation? And you have to find and seek out like-minded individuals like you. Don't go for the distractions, because there are plenty of distractions out there. But seek information that's going to set you on that path that you're looking to follow. Because it's out there. They just have to come together. You know, we come together as one and we'll get things done.
And there was always cats who, like when Harriet Tubman would come and say, let's get out of here, where's we going to go? We can't go over there because the white man owned there, and we can't stay here because the white man stay here. So they just stay there, you know, they grumble up under their breath and whatnot, you know. But you can't, you know, like Harriet, you can't let them keep you from getting where you got to go. You know, I wish you luck in the next phase, brother, but, you know, we got a world to build, and I think you're part of that, a big part of that.
I'm going to let y'all go ahead, and hopefully another caller come out, but, y'all, I love both of y'all, man. Ain't nothing y'all can do.
I love you too, brother. I love you too, brother. All right. Yeah, so help us out a little more with this this event that you got coming up. Libya, Cote d'Ivoire, Zimbabwe, Haiti, Mali, and the Congo. Tell us a little more about that. Tell us about the guest speaker. You have a special guest speaker.
Yes, definitely. I have to mention Brother Balfour Ankoma. He's the editor of the New African Magazine. New African Magazine is one of the most progressive African-focused magazines in the world. This brother has been on the scene in many countries, whether it be Zimbabwe, whether it be Ghana, whether it be in the Congo. He's talking about the issues that are affecting our people, and he's doing it from a Pan-Africanist perspective. So we're having him as our keynote speaker at the event. Balfour, he's going to be talking about the issues, and again, his knowledge, he wants to get out to the people.
Take this call, because we're running low on time. That was my fault. I said hold the calls back for a while, and
well, you know, they love you that. They want to talk to you.
Well, no, this is important. This is, you know. Caller, if you're there, you guys can put the call through.
Hello?
Hi, caller.
Yeah, I just have a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
If you had Obama's ear, what would you propose to him? What would you have to say to him if you had his ear? Thank you.
Oh, what would you say?
I would tell President Obama to look at your African people, put black people on your agenda. You know, there are many issues that we have to face just in our daily existence. There are many issues that we have to face when we come to our future existence. So I would just tell President Obama that black people voted for you for office, so listen to us and listen to our concerns and put us on your agenda. Put our agenda, make that your agenda.
And I would urge President Obama to listen to the Obama that had aspirations to do things, and not just the Obama who is the president now. I understand the confines of the president. I understand that there are difficulties. But he is the president. He's the president for the second time, so there's nothing anybody can do about that. And I think that sometimes you have to go back to who you were in order to get the best of who you are. And yeah, sometimes you get lost in the sauce. That's not to say that, you know, I think he's evil or wicked or, you know, I think he's probably better than anybody else. You can talk about his mama being white, but everybody else had a white mama and a white daddy too. But again, you know, just don't let anybody take the you from you. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do. They're not gonna like you, but they don't like you anyway. I mean, you've kissed their butt for the last 5 years, And they hate you now just like they hated you before, so you might as well give them a reason, you know. Yeah, and just, you know, go out big. Go out big. Don't let them steal your soul. We're coming down on the last minute, you know. We're off at 58. We're at 56. So again, tell us about this event. Tell us what's going on. You got about a minute to do this before we start saying bye-bye.
Sure. Again, and once again, in celebration and commemoration, I should say, of the 48th anniversary of the death of Malcolm X, December 12th movement, we'll have our Pan-Africanism Rising International Forum, Resist the Rise of Imperialism in Africa and Wars of Recolonization. It's going to be next Thursday, 6 p.m. at Mount Olivet Baptist Church. That's at 201 Lenox Avenue at the corner of 120th Street. Again, this talks about Malcolm X and his legacy and what we have to do to continue the fight against imperialism, not only here in the United States, but also around the world, particularly in Africa. For further information, folks can call 718-398-1766. Again, that's 718-398-1766. And so we look forward to seeing a good amount of you folks out there to discuss this important program and what's happening in the world today.
You guys in the control room, if you can hear me, you can run track 2. We're out in about 30 seconds, so I have just enough time to say thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next Tuesday. In the words of Brother Omar, we love you and ain't a doggone thing you can do about it. That's paraphrasing, but we're out. We'll see you next week. Peace.